Good morning. Today we're going to be taking a look at why it's a really bad idea to destroy your parameters. We're going to be using a couple different things to take a look at this. So I'm inside one of my projects we're using with debug.ducks, and as you can see right here, I've got a data member called demo.ducks. This is a debug.duck array, and I have a pop-up view that I can actually show the information. And we've got our start method where we're going to show the information that happens when we try and actually destroy that information. So in my constructor, as you can see, I've initialized my demo.ducks to be a new debug.duck array of 20. I have this .view's new pop-up because you always initialize your view after you work with your model. Trust me on this, it saves you so much time. And I have my loadDucks method where I go through and I put a whole bunch of values in my ducks. I randomly assign them a title, a name, and then based on the size of those two different arrays, titles and names, I give them a whole bunch of questions using that magic little bit right there in the get question method, so I can get a whole bunch of questions for each of my ducks in that loadDucks method. So those two methods combine together to give me some duck information, which is really great. So we've got that information right there, so we'll go ahead and close those out of the way because we don't need them anymore. And so inside our start method, we're going to see what we can do to actually work with a parameter, what happens when we change parameters inside methods and what it actually does to the code itself. And so we want to talk about the fact of the mental process that we're thinking because, I'm talking about objects versus what actually happens. We're going to use that to look at that in a little bit closer idea, and we're going to use debug so we can see exactly what's happening inside the code so we can see what's going on as we do this. And we'll take a look at that and go from there. In my start method, I have a couple local variables to store the counts of the questions that we're working with. We go to the first loop right there, iterate over all the ducks, and I get the total questions for each duck to store it in that variable. And I combine that in a string so I get started questions for all variables stored inside that, and I display that message. And then I do my invalid method with the ducks, and I then see what happens with that, and I add all those values up to that into the incorrect questions answered. And then I call the invalid update string and put that information in that. Then I do the correct update using demo.ducks again, and then add all the questions together for that. And then I create another string for that, and then I concatenate those three strings together in my display message. And then we'll go ahead and take a look and see what happens. We'll execute the code, and then we'll step into it through debug and actually go from there. So we click the play button, and we can see we have the starting questions for all 20 ducks is 530, that randomly generated amount that we actually created with that. And so that's where we're at right here on line 32. That's where we're waiting for. And then I say OK. And then my incorrectly updated questions for all ducks, 5 ducks is 5. 5 ducks. Wait, I had 20 ducks just a second ago. Let's say, look what happens. And then OK. And then correctly updated questions for all 20 ducks. I'm back to 20 again. Well, what's going on here? Is 20. Then say OK again. And then I have that concatenated result right here. So my starting questions for all 20 ducks is 530. My incorrectly updated questions is still 530. But my correctly updated questions for all 20 ducks is now 550, a difference of 20. So I actually changed the values in the correctly updated method. And so let's go ahead and take a look at the code and see how that happens and use debug so we can step through and see what's going on with that. So we're going to debug the program. Again, we're using the debug. I've got my breakpoint set right here so I can look at the values before we get started. So I put my breakpoint right here on line 32. So I've assigned the values to my original set of ducks, and I've got that string original where I'm going to wait for that because it happens before the update ducks thing. If you want more information on debug, check out one of my videos on debug so we can go in that and get a lot more detail. Great thing to take a look at. So I click the debug button to go into that. I'm using Eclipse, so I just click the cute little bug button. And it says we're going to change the perspective. So I say, OK, switch it. And again, I have my stack trace over here, I have my code editor right here, and then I have my variables window right here where I can see the contents of what I'm working with right now. And so let's go ahead and we're going to step over this line, string original. So we step over that execution, and we can see we now have that string original right here as the value in there. But what I really want to direct your attention to is demo.ducks. So as you can see, demo.ducks right here is expanded out. So you can see it's got demo.ducks inside. It's a debug.duck array that's of length 20. Its ID is also 20, great number for it, so we can easily keep track of that. And each of those in there, those are ducks. If I click on one of the ducks inside there, for example, this one, sub1, I can see its name is Mixed Quackers, and it has questions 0 through 8, so 9 total questions on that exist for that duck right there. And so that's what we have inside the array right now, are 20 ducks. They all have a bunch of questions in them that are randomly generated from that previous method, the load questions method. So now that we've got that, we're going to go ahead and we're going to go into our invalid ducks array. Now I step over this line right here, so my display message. So I'll step over that. I step over the method, press OK so I can get past that point. I'm going to go into invalid ducks array. Now I've already got a breakpoint inside that, so I can just hit the resume button to go straight there, or I could step into, I'm just going to hit resume though because it takes me straight to that spot. And now I'm pausing right here on line 119. As you can see at line 119, I have not executed the line source equals new debug duck array, but I have my debug duck array parameter source. And so as you can see over here, I'm inside my variables list. We can see that source is a debug duck array. Its ID value is 20. It's actually the one we're looking at just a minute ago. And it has all those ducks in it. Again, if I go take a look at one and its name is still Mixed Quackers. And that Mixed Quackers still has those 9 questions that are in there already. The same ones, perfect thing, because I just sent a reference to that list. But here's where the mental process does not match the idea of what happens actually inside Java. So when I'm taking a look at this object here I send as a parameter, you might think that, oh, because I've got this parameter and it's an object, when I assign a new value to it, I'm changing the object I was talking to. But no, that's not actually what we do. When we say source equals new debug array, I'm not changing the original reference source. That's over here still inside my stack trace. We can see the demoducks on the stack right here is still having a reference to that. It's still in the heap over there on the actual information. So demoduck still has that ID of 20. It's right there, still available. But when I go to this point and I step over that line to go to line 120 where I've reinitialized source to be a new array. So I step over that one line. Notice that source has changed. It's now a debug duck of length 5. And look at its ID variable. Its ID is now 185 and it's filled with null. But over here on start, if I go back to that in the stack trace, I still have demoducks. Demoducks is still in the stack. That reference to it is still existing down below us on the stack, which I have not popped up off the stack yet, so it's still there. It's still an active reference inside my code. But when I'm right here on line 120, I've just reinitialized this parameter. So I took the leash that was holding the source variable that was originally pointing to original debug ducks array, and I threw that leash away, and I made it point to a brand new thing over here in the stack, which is a new array of debug ducks, yes, but it's only 5 big. They're all filled with null, and it's just a local variable now. Because it only exists, it was defined here as a declaration, and it's now initialized right here on line 119, and so now it's only going to exist down to 136, the end of the method, because after that point it's dead and gone. I know. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to hit resume to step down here to that last line of the code of view.display message. So hit the play button to resume that, go back down to there, and now here at line 135, I'm at the end of the method. I will step over that line, and my incorrectly updated ducks show that all 5 ducks is 5. So I updated 5 ducks questions. Okay, because 1 right here happens to be mixed quackers again. Oh, that's pretty cool. Now at line 136, I'm going to step back over that, step over one more time. I'm back inside now after that invalid update ducks array, and notice when I'm right back here, demoducks ID 20. I've not changed that variable. Even though I reassigned that variable inside the method, that only became then a local variable they just reassigned, so there's no actual change to my actual array that I'm working with, and so I didn't do any change to it. So now I'm back here inside my actual method. I've got this right here, and I can step over this again. I'll hit resume to go to my next breakpoint. I'm at invalid update, and my updated questions here are still 585, the original total I had for that. So I step over through one more time yet again. My correctly updated questions, and I go back up to that point. They're all at 120, and boom, I'm back through that, and I actually didn't make any changes to my structure, because when I go inside that local variable, it doesn't make anything to it, because at this point down here, inside the invalid update ducks array, when I reinitialize that variable, it simply just turns it to a local variable that I change, and it's gone and dead at the end of the method. That's why it's really important not to destroy your parameter, because when you destroy your parameter, you turn it into just a local variable, and it's no longer referring to the original data source you thought you were talking to. So it's very important you never do something like that, source equals new debug duck array, inside a method to change that parameter, because that doesn't really actually make the change you think you're making, unless you assign that back into the variable via return statement or some other change like that. I hope this is helpful. Cheers. We'll see you next time, and have a great day. Bye-bye.